We need to talk. Yeah, I saw your tweet. Awkward. So you really hate men? What about me? No? Oh, you don't hate me? I'm not like other men, you say? I'm different, you say? By different, do you mean woman? Did you just woman zone me? You're so cancelled. Oh my god, you're so cancelled right now. Maybe if you liked, subscribed, ringed the bell and turned on all notifications, I might forgive you. I don't know. I'd have to think about it. What you just did was just very, very problematic.
What will you learn? What will you learn? That your actions have consequences!
I'm kidding, kinda. Stay with me, cause I want to talk about the intersection of man hate and transphobia, which leads to the erasure of trans men and pitting us against fellow trans people, when in reality, society.
I'm the Joker, baby!
Yeah, society is the problem. Wow, I'm really having a Joker moment. Let's get one thing straight though. I'm not about to pull the trans equivalent of what about men? Oh, women struggle, what about men? What about men? Yeah, what about men? The man hate is nowhere near the same as misogyny. Man hate is more often than not a response to the discrimination, violence and fear certain people have experienced at the hands of men. Well, there's literally no justification for misogyny at all. We know that not all men are violent and misogynistic. Not all of us are bad. Of course we're not. Some of us might be misguided, especially those who haven't experienced the effects of misogyny, but not inherently bad. However, the reality is that we don't know who's safe and who might assault you. So, it's better to stay safe than sorry.
Why do I sound like a huge dork when trying to be serious?
I don't blame anyone for making generalized statements or joke about their oppressor, cause you know what they say.
He who is free of sin shall cast the first stone.
And boy do I love to make generalized statements and jokes at the expense of cis people. But it does become a problem when those jokes and generalized statements are made without an ounce of critical thinking. Cause now people are emboldened enough to blame us trans men for the discrimination we've been at odds with for our entire lives.
I'm triggered.
Some people are all about intersectionality until it comes to trans men, who apparently now have all the perks that come with manhood. While I won't deny that there's definitely privileges that comes with navigating the world while you're perceived as a man, that shouldn't take away from all the medical struggles, all the mental struggles, and all the social struggles. Cis men don't get disowned for simply being a man. They never had to choose between family and living their truth. What they do experience, however, is the isolation of manhood. You can't expect emotionally stable men when they're never allowed to talk about their emotions or even cry in front of others unless it's considered appropriate timing. Say at a funeral, for example. Then it's justified, but crying unexpectedly is unmanly, apparently, no matter what you might be going through alone. If people just assume you're crying about nothing, then you're just a crybaby little piss boy, so unmanly and no dignity, but like boo-hoo. Talking about these gender-based struggles shouldn't take away from misogyny in any way, so it's quite frankly transphobic to use that card against trans men who try to speak up, cause the safety of stealth trans men is only one aspect of our experience. We're a group of people that has probably experienced discrimination at one point or another, abandonment, debilitating gender dysphoria, financial strain, and yet, as men, A lot of us can't access the support system we so desperately need after all we've gone through. People who are supposed to be our allies see us as men, which is good. But our allies see us as simply men and should therefore be able to fend for ourselves as the privileged gender.
Hashtag not all allies.
Not to mention our treatment by transphobes and TERFs. I can't tell you what it must be like to be a trans woman in this climate, but from what I do know, I believe they've gotten the short end of the stick. I'm very well aware of their treatment as predatory and violent, and I don't want anything I say to diminish their pain and suffering, but to completely ignore and downplay the transphobia directed at trans men is just, it's just ludicrous.
I'm not blaming trans women for this obviously, I'm blaming everyone else who's comparing our struggles and pitting us against each other. Women.
Although some TERFs might say we're confused girls who've been groomed by the trans agenda, they sure as hell don't treat us as the victims we supposedly are. There's no sympathy for us. They don't want what's best for us, however misguided they might be. The words are just dripping with misogyny. You're simultaneously a dumb, impressionable, little mutilated girl and a groomer who deserved it. No matter how well you pass, if transphobes find out, that's the end of it. You're not a man. You're worse than a woman. Women are only valuable if they're attractive, and you're no longer appealing to the cishet man. But yeah, let's talk about our male privilege once again. It's just such a privilege to not have our bodily autonomy respected. I have yet to access tea, and you know why? 'Cause my fertility and hypothetical future as a mother is more important than my will to live. Although I appreciate all the well-intended comments meant to help, informing me I can get testosterone at Planned Parenthood, I would have done so a long time ago if it was that easy. It's just not a possibility in Sweden, unless I get a gender dysphoria diagnosis, which I can only get at the clinic with a years-long waiting list, and believe me, I've waited. There's no way for me to access tea legally. Not until I get a diagnosis. If I get a diagnosis.
This is a nightmare!
At the same time, I'm struggling with the transphobic rhetoric that I've internalized since an early age, which is still getting shoved down my fucking throat, just face me 24/7. Testosterone makes you evil, it makes you aggressive, it makes you savage. You get hair in your ass, you get smelly, you get a deeper voice. So why would you want to ruin your body like that? Why would you turn your back on the pure sex? Traitor!
Triggered.
I'm well aware of all the effects of testosterone. Trust me, I've done my research. I've thought it through multiple times over the years. All the effects are exactly what I want with my body, but it still gets to me. I only made the decision to actually transition once it became unbearable to deal with it, and this was my only chance of surviving. I know it's my body, it's my choice, and I should do whatever makes me happy, but that doesn't mean others' comments won't affect me at all. Like, come on, you're a liar if you say that others' opinions of you haven't affected you at all, nor influenced your decisions ever, especially if you're still young.
We literally live in a society.
I'm pretty resistant to peer pressure, but this is very different. This is very, very intense. This will affect almost every aspect of my life and will for the rest of my life. There's just so much I've worried about and there's so many risks. Like, how would this affect my social life? Don't get me wrong, I like hanging out with guys. I had guy friend groups growing up. However, my two closest friends at the moment are both, one of them is a girl and the other is non-binary, but you know, girl-aligned. They hadn't come out at the time when this was a worry of mine, but yeah, I was very worried about how my transition would affect our dynamic. It's just weird how we view friendship between men and women. I'm not talking about the whole notion that a friendship between a woman and a man must turn romantic. It's just that people think men and women are just worlds apart and are never gonna understand each other fully. Girlfriends and guy friends are always gonna have a completely different bond than opposite sex friends in the eyes of society. Society! I keep saying it. Society. We live in a society. I didn't want to be the odd one out, although my friends are very progressive and I'd like to think that our bond is stronger than that. I couldn't help but wonder if there might be a subconscious change once I get on T. I don't know, maybe I'm just overthinking it, but yeah, it's a worry of mine. I'm just tired of people being unable to acknowledge that although trans men are men, we have a very different experience than cis men, and that's okay. A lot of different men have different experiences. It's just how life works, innit? Unfortunately, I see more insane takes than a more balanced and reasonable approach while discussing trans men, unless it's coming from trans men themselves.
Not always, some of y'all are weird.
Maybe that's just what I take notice of, but still, I'm surprised even one person would say something like that. What prompted this video was actually a post I came across by a non-trans man saying it was embarrassing to see trans men complain about how we're treated unfairly because of gender. They then compared it to race, saying that it would be like a white woman wanting to talk about misogyny specific to white women after seeing women of color talking about the intersection of racism and misogyny. Obviously, it would be very, very, very cringe and very ridiculous for white women to do that. And also a huge red flag, a massive red flag. But it's just not comparable. It's just not. I hate seeing people comparing race issues with gender issues because it's just not the same. You're also ignoring that there's trans men of color. I don't know. I've also had the misfortune to come across a hot take about how we're even worse than cis men because we use our woke vocabulary and perceived innocence to manipulate women. It's true. I do that. No, I'm kidding, I don't. This was either a psyop or a very misguided person, cause what they said was indistinguishable from TERF rhetoric, which is the thing. I'm not against people making jokes at the expense of men, because men have been doing that to women for decades, but you should still think critically thinking in it, lest I'd mistake you for a TERF. No joke. I've had someone in my comments going, "Ew, why would you choose to become a man?" And I'm still not sure whether it was a bad joke or a genuine TERF. Like, that's some TERF right there. I know how scary it is to walk the world as a woman. I've had men approach me when it's dark outside to make inappropriate comments. When I was a kid, I've been sexually harassed by strangers on the street. I wouldn't want to make anyone feel the way I've felt, and I'm sure a lot of trans men can relate. So why would you ever treat us like we're the oppressors when we've been discriminated against and continue to be discriminated against because at the end of the day we're still trans? And that being said, like this video, subscribe, ring the bell, comment your thoughts, especially if you're a trans man and want to add on to this, because I could go on for much longer, but I don't want to make this video longer than it already is. If you're not comfortable or can't think of anything to say, then maybe tell me who your favorite Ninja Turtle is. For me, it really depends, but generally speaking, I'm a Mikey kind of guy. That's all. See you. Bye.